Hi folks, and welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to Blighty as well. That's probably more of a welcome back to Blighty for me than it is to you, who's probably already been in the UK. But yeah, I am back from adventures afar, and yeah, good old Brexit has stamped me out, so I've got to wait my 90 days before I can venture back into to that part of the world anyway. But that doesn't stop me adventuring in other places, which hopefully there'll be much of that quite soon. Although, possibly for the next few weeks, I doubt my van will really turn a wheel. And that is because, yeah, I've come back home and gone through the motions of 3 months of travel and realised there's a few things on my van I need to change. In my head, I was building a basic campervan, lightweight basic campervan, not for campsites with hookup or even just to sit off grid and enjoy the sun, but specifically, well, like one step up from a tent, but in a vehicle that will take you, quite a few places. And sustain you for quite a long period of time, and has a separate toilet and a kitchen area and a bed, and yeah, basic, comfortable, lightweight, in as much as a compromise as I could get, and this is the van. It's just that the electrical system has been based on the motorhome, and two people living in a motorhome, cooking for two people several times a day. So when I spec'd the electrical system of this van, I kind of looked at the old motorhome and went, right, well, if that's that, I need better. Yeah, so first mistake, really. I've basically got far too much power in this van, far too much capacity of battery, and the inverter as well. I mean, the inverter is, yes, fair enough, it's 2 kilowatt inverter, so it's not massive, but it's also a 75 amp rapid battery charger. Now, for someone who lives off grid, I don't really need that. And yes, I understand there may be sometimes in winter I'm low on power, and it would be nice to use the juicy brucey cable I've got and go and find an EV port somewhere and fast charge me at 75 amps. But you spread that across two batteries, yeah, it's only like 30 odd amps, and yeah, it's a lot of weight still, like a hell of a lot of weight. In fact, I think the 2 kilowatt inverter charger combo thing weighs more, or if not the same, as a 200 amp hour battery. It's certainly the same size, so I'm carrying all that weight around for such a short time of year where I might need it. I've also got some electrical gremlins as well. I think because the original electrical system my van was designed for was all sort of a touch panel control and all that, no switches, dials, and everything was built in one power distribution plant and everything else. I tried to adapt this electrical system to that, and that's led to some gremlins. So essentially, I'm taking all my electrical system out and rewiring my van and putting in a new electrical system. Obviously, there will be a video dedicated to that. I'm not going to explain it all on this video, but yeah, there will be a dedicated video about what I'm taking out, what I'm putting back in, and more about why, and more about the products I'm using, etc., etc. But I'm not going to take up all this video with just that, because there's many more things that I've needed to change as well. So let me refer to my list. Right then, so when I built my bench seat, I built it out of 15mm ply, so it's nice and strong for you to sit on and to store things in there. What I've then discovered is that it's also quite weighty, and the cushions, when it's damp, so like if I'm up at the top of the mountains, spent a few days in the clouds, when it's damp, the cushions absorb the damp, but obviously they're sat on a solid wooden surface, there's no way to aerate the cushions really. So I still want to keep the strength and rigidity, but I need some airflow in there as well. Obviously a little bit of weight saving too. So I'm going to put some air holes in the structure of the bench seat. For such a simple van with simple electrics, I need more USB points and more light in the van as well. Why? Just because there were some days where I didn't have enough USB sockets or electrical points in the van to charge everything that I was using. So on an average day, I would have a 360 cam, an Osmo Action, this camera, the big camera, the drone, several other little cameras that I use for sort of like little back shots and things like that, controllers, phones, iPads, laptops as I'm working on them. So yeah, I probably need to double the amount of USB points that I've got in the van. Another thing that I've done it already, but yeah, another thing was to declutter the dash. Again, simplicity, simplicity, simplicity. So obviously in the last van I went for the nice big stereo with a big display, and that was cool. And then brought out obviously the CarPlay screen. So I had the Android CarPlay screen on, and that was great, and everything else was working. I don't need anything like that. It's far too complicated. You get in your van and you set this up and do that, and this has got to connect to that, and that's got to connect to this, and I'm quite happy. I spent a week in the end driving around with just my phone on the little mag mount that charges on my dash. I've actually moved it over to the right hand side as well, found that much easier to see. It's just basically right next to the heads-up display now. So I've got sat nav, heads-up display, boom, and everything just works so much simpler. And I've taken the CarPlay off, and yeah, very happy that it is just my phone that I use. It's quite a big phone. It's iPhone 14 Pro Max. So it's a big enough screen, and I can either have it that way or that way, depending on what I want to do. Yeah, works fine. And my stereo is a good stereo already. It's got sat nav built in it, but it's obviously the 2019 version. And the upgrade is something like 60 quid or something to upgrade the maps in it. Can't be bothered with that. Yeah, just Bluetooth stream music, and the audio comes through from the sat nav and everything like that. I can use the steering wheel controls. It's fine. Again, reining back to make things more simple, to uncomplicate the setup, and also removing clutter, removing crap as well. So another really big update as well is suspension. Before I went away, I obviously upgraded the suspension. I'm not going to mention any products. I removed that video as well, because the type of adventure places I want to go and visit are not suitable for that product. So if you want to drive down motorways and flat roads and everything all the time, that's fine. But if you were to go back and watch my Spanish adventure video on some of the close-up shots where the drone's right over the back of the van and the van's going over bumps, you'll see the van porpoising, or basically bouncing around like you're sat at the back of the bus and it's on some country lane. Literally, it's just boom, 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 just does that. Not like normal vehicles when you go over a road and it goes ba-boom. It's boom, boom, boom. It's just bouncing around like crazy, because ultimately that suspension adaptation, where it's just plastic, rubber or whatever, so it's got actually no give. There's no suspension factor to it. It's simply just to raise the vehicle higher, and therefore yeah, that just didn't work for me. It made me feel quite nauseous driving it around, just, you know, doing this all the time. And yeah, ultimately it led to things, you know, moving around in a vehicle more than they should. Yeah, feeling like the van wasn't safe to drive. At one point, I'm going around bends and that, and I'm on the radio to Mandy saying, you know, do you feel like I'm going too slow? She went, yeah, a little bit, which is a big deal for Mandy, because Mandy takes things easy. But it's just like, you know, I'm looking behind and I can see all the motorhomes in a procession of vehicles behind me going round bends, and I'm like, this isn't right. So yeah, one thing I will always do on this channel, and that is to let everyone know if things don't work out, and why, and what I'm about to do to change it. So with that said, what am I going to do to change it? Well, that's easy. I'm going to upgrade the original factory suspension to a higher rated, heavier duty suspension. It's my preference. I'm not saying that you all should just go and do this, just my preference, given where I know I like to drive and the type of roads that are going to be there. So mountain switchback lanes where you're doing that all the time, or tracks, forest tracks, things where it's very rough, very undulated. There's corrugation in a road, there's massive ruts in the road or bits missing or whatever, and I just find, yeah, that the current setup isn't right. So that's another big upgrade. I want some extra lighting as well. So we did have these things which go on a little magnetic mount, and they are quite nice. You know, they're rechargeable and they give, you know, different levels of lights and different colors, and they're dimmable and everything else, rechargeable. Like I say, they're really good. They're just plastic, and they rattle and vibrate an awful lot, and that annoyed the hell out of me, as you can imagine, going up over all these bumps and everything else. So yeah, I'm changing them for normal light strips. And another big thing was my kitchen fridge situation. Obviously I've been in 40-degree heat, and the compressor fridges, or one's a fridge, one's a freezer, but same thing, they're running pretty much all the time. Literally, they'll run for 20 minutes, they'll shut off, and then 60 seconds later they'll run for 20 minutes again, and that's through the night as well. And what I'm finding is they seem to be getting really hot inside there. Now, if you remember, I insulated it, but I gave vent holes for air movement. That air movement from their own internal fans pushing them out isn't enough. So I need to find a way, and it could well be that I remove the insulation from the unit that they're stored in, and instead I might install sound panels, sound deadening panels instead, sort of like I used to have in the studio when I used to be Gadget John in a house. Foam panels with a, you know, certain sort of rippled effect finish on it to absorb the sound. So I might do that, because they're very, very, very noisy. When the motor kicks in and the fans kick in, everything else, there's a lot of noise there. So one is to remove the noise, and the second one is to aid with cooling when it gets warm. So what I can do with that is I'll install some fans behind the vents I've put in there, with just a simple switch on there as well, so that when it gets really hot during the day, I can manually just turn the fans on to assist with the cooling of them. And then at night, I mean, I've been so impressed with the two max fans. I don't think it's been more than about 21, 22 degrees overnight in the van. So I don't have to worry about them so much overnight, because, you know, they're not getting that hot then. But obviously they are still making a noise as they kick in and kick out. So it's a twofold thing. I want to aid the cooling during the day when it's like really hot in the summer, and I want to basically reduce the noise overnight, the droning noise of the motors and the fans, so I can sleep better, basically. So there are other things, and obviously I will be making videos. So the van needs a service. I need some new rear brakes, the disc brakes and the drum brakes for the handbrake, new cables, stuff like that. I need to repaint some of the black lower paint that I did, simply because yeah, desert mud is whoa, it's good stuff, and it took a lot to get it off. So a lot of high pressure Karcher washer and stuff like that, and some of that paint came off. So yeah, I'm going to touch that up, make it all look nice again, and generally just go around the van and just check everything out before, yeah, I head off for my next adventure, wherever that might be. I do have a couple of ideas, but you know, there we go. So yeah, it was just an update really, just to say there are a few things in the van that I need to change, why, and a brief overview of, you know, sort of like a few little issues I've had. And obviously I still want to try and finish off the van as well. So, you know, sort of like vinyl wrapping the edges and finishing off some of these wood panels and little bits like that as well. So there's an amount of fettling to finish the van off because it wasn't really finished that well. Oh yeah, that was another thing as well, is I want to try and replace the catches and hinges and gas struts and everything on the doors. And also, yeah, the latches squeak like hell and they're a bit weak. So I need to put 2 latches on each door so the doors don't fly open. Happened a couple of times. And change the hinges and the gas struts as well, simply because they don't work. They make the door kink over a little bit. And on one of them, the gas strut as it attaches to the door has actually come really loose, because these doors, if you remember, it was a bit of a Mickey take or an ode to my auto fail van. They are the same doors. They're hollow cardboard doors, so like a really tiny little bit of wood with corrugated cardboard in the middle, made into a nice sandwich. So they're nice and lightweight. However, that does mean there's nothing to grip into when you put a screw in there. And because the gas struts aren't working so well, they've, yeah, sort of like moved a fair bit, and now there's nothing to screw into either. So I'm going to go for hinges that will hopefully keep the door open, or just good old-fashioned like a bonnet stay sort of thing, like a, you know, sort of like 2 pieces of metal when you open it and they just lock together, and then you have to pull it up a little bit, unlock it, and then close it. Just a mechanical thing. One way or the other, I'll get to the bottom of that, but yeah, ultimately that's it. So yeah, next few weeks should be a little bit interesting if you are more interested in the van build and modification side of things, rather than you know, sort of out traveling or whatever. So right then, let's get to it. See you later.